And we are live. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another Bow Wow Bill live stream. I have the amazing Alicia Bloomfield with me. How are you?
Good. How are you? Thank you
Doing
for.
great. Yeah, we got a little bit behind because you couldn't hear me for
No,
forever.
the tech. I'm not at all tech savvy. I may be many things, but tech savvy is definitely not one of those.
Yeah, well, that's why we work with dogs. But it's
Yeah.
also, I think they're having an issue with it. So she had to switch to her phone, but here we are. And well, I'm going to do a quick few shares here. And if you guys are listening right now, go ahead and hit that share button. And um, and while I'm doing that, do you want to tell everybody about you? Where are you out of, and a little bit about your business?
Yeah. Southern Ohio, about an hour and a half south of Columbus. It's a small town called Lucasville. Some people might real recognize Portsmouth. It actually was the used to be the capital of Ohio back way back in the day, but I'm about 10 minutes away from Portsmouth. I live right on the Ohio River, Kentucky. um, so we've been here. I grew up here, but moved from California when my dad got sick, and we started the business over again. So we've been back here for about 4 years, and
Okay.
I specialize in severe behavioral modifications, especially aggression. I do large pack work, and uh, oh gosh, how many dogs do I have now? I don't keep track anymore because they come and go. But my personal pack is stays around 16 dogs.
Yeah,
So
Kelly Engel and I were chatting about you.
yeah,
She's reaching Alicia level. That's what
yeah,
we said.
it's not. It's not hard because I do get dogs that I know that they may
Hmm.
have to spend their life with me, but it's because I challenge myself to try and address the problems just to see if I can do it. And they end up turning into fantastic dogs, sort of like Caesar. Some of you guys may have seen some of the videos that I have of him. You know, he's not going as fast as I like because I can't work on him as much as I would like to, but getting there.
Yeah, that's the rub of being a professional. We're working with so many other dogs that our dogs sometimes take the back seat.
Yeah. Yeah, and right now I have so many dogs. I don't really have the space to do as much as I want to do as a pack.
Hmm.
Whenever you had 20 dogs compared to like 35, 40, things start to shift a little bit. So once that gets ironed out, it will be back to that. My pack's starting to come together. I had to completely rebuild.
Need volume. So Linda's saying need volume. Sue, hey Sue, how are you? Need volume. So if you have, do you have a mic or anything by chance, a headphone mic? Can you guys hear me okay? Can you hear Alicia? Let us know in the comments below. We're using a third party software thing, and we were having some glitches earlier with Alicia not being able to hear me.
Yeah.
Erica says, hi, Alicia. Hey, Bill. And
Hi.
hey, yeah, and let us know where you're from down in the comments below, and hit that share button. Make sure to hit that. Let's get this shared far and wide. And so, when did you start working with dogs?
It's been about 10 years, but all my life. I started with horses when I was 10.
I can hear you both. Okay. And volume good for both. A little delay sometimes after Alicia. Okay, cool. So you started working with horses.
Right. Yep. I started with horses. I had an obsession with horses from a very young age. And then I couldn't have, my mom had to get me my first horse. I got my first horse when I was 10,
Okay.
the old broken down show horse that nobody wanted anymore.
Yeah.
So that's where it started. And I use a lot of, I still use horses and if I have a really hard time, even grounding myself with the dogs, then I'll go work a horse because it's very, it's just a subconscious. You go whenever you've been around horses for so long, you just automatically go there.
I wish I worked with horses more.
They're very amazing because my favorite part about working with the horses is the fact that they're exactly the same as dogs when it comes to the energy. However, because they're more of a prey animal. They move a little quicker,
Hmm.
easier to show projecting energy, and the way you feel comes across a little bit more profound with a horse. And a lot of people are more aware of what they're doing with a horse because they're big. They're big, they're dangerous. People are more intimidated by that. Because of that, they pay way more attention to what they're doing and they're in the moment. So that allows them to experience, where they're really at emotionally, and builds confidence really nicely, especially for kids or people that have these huge dogs that are aggressive, and you take them in and they can deal with a 1,500-pound animal, and it doesn't seem so bad anymore.
Wild. Yeah. Well, what's the difference between the dog being a predator and the horse being an herbivore? That's probably the only major difference, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can push a horse into flight a lot quicker than you can a dog. You
Okay.
can't approach a horse like you would a dog. But the horses are, you know, like the whole feeling, they can feel a fly land on their body. So, I mean, they can feel you from so far away that if you start to learn to connect with them, that you have to raise your energy up and down. That's one of my favorite things to teach
Hmm.
students whenever you're working with horses, is the fact that you have to learn to go into a more assertive place and yet be soft about it, firm about it, but soft. And then you have to go up and down because there might be a time that the horse is moving away and you have to push forward with a more assertive energy. But if you push too hard, the horse is going to run too fast, too far away. But if you have the horse moving already and you push him with too strong of energy, you could push them totally into panic and run off. So it's really nice to learn about the prey drive, the survival mode, fight or flight. Most
Yeah.
horses are abused.
What was that? You're breaking up that last bit.
Most horses won't fight. That's not normal for them to be in fight.
Okay.
They'll be
Yeah.
they'll run.
So yeah, that's probably the biggest thing is the dog's the flightiness of the horse and the fight or flight where the dog is ready to stand that ground because of the predator mindset. You can only push them so far before they're going to be like knock it off. And not only that, but the body aids that horse in that flight too. They can get the heck out of there and gallop out of there.
Right.
Tosh from New Zealand says, "Yay, hello!" And then Adrian Copeland from all the way up in the Great Northern, where the Eskimos and the
Hi.
igloos up in Alberta.
Way up
uh,
in there.
Way up there. Hey, Adrian. And then we have Diane says, Alicia, the badass student, is in the house. So,
Diane, my favorite student from Arizona.
well, and a lot of people, especially in the dog training world, there's machismo mode, and it's like, very cut and dry. And once you start talking about energy, and especially start talking about raise your energy up and down, I know a lot of trainers will get glassy eyed, but not me, man. I know I get it, and I think that this is a huge linchpin that a lot of people that work with animals don't consider. Why do you feel energy is an important aspect to take in consideration when working with animals?
Absolutely. The psychology approach is my favorite because of that, because everything works through your state of mind. However, you have to also be in the right mental state of mind for this to work. So it's a challenge not only for, to make the dogs so much more solid whenever you're rehabbing them, the solid that they because it gets into their subconscious when you're working in a psych state of mind. They're having to come out of the fight or flight, and they're not dropping down into just avoidance. They're having to fall all the way into acceptance, and that rest and repair. Everything becomes, oh well, I don't have to be so emotional about that person walking into my space and putting pressure on me. It 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 is so much more of a connection because of that, but at the same time it can be way worse for some people because they can't check themselves.
I love that avoidance falling into acceptance.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love it.
I
Because,
love the cycling aspect, and everything comes down to just plain old pressure.
Mm,
There's so many forms of pressure: psychological pressure, tactile pressure, which would be touch of any form, leash, my hand touch, e-collar touch, any physical touch would be tactile pressure. And then you have your psychological pressure, which is your intentions and your visualization. And energy follows intentions. So if you can create an intention and you visualize that, you communicate that telepathically to the dog, and the dog, if it's in the right state of mind, doesn't need to be told 20 times or conditioned to do that, because it hears you the first time, and it takes down the how many times you have to be no longer conditioning, you're communicating.
right. Well, and that's, I mean, we have a conscious mind.
Yes.
And a lot of times that conscious mind, I think, gets in the way. Where these beings with the mammalian brain, we have a neocortex, a new part of our brain that allows us so many different processes, capabilities with our brain. And that's why I have to tell people anthropomorphizing these animals is a disservice to this animal. And let me tell you why, because they're not even capable of processing the world like we are.
Right.
Okay. And so, and sometimes that could be a curse, because I think that our conscious mind convinces us, that we are not connected to source, that we are not energy, and calls it mumbo jumbo, who we, whatever it is. Right.
Yeah. And that's so beyond us. That's, again, I go back to the survival mode, because the survival mode, when dogs are there, when people are, dog, people, animal, whatever species, this is interspecies stuff. This is not just we are, they are.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
you're in survival mode, you're at the worst of you, who you could possibly be. That's the worst of you when you're in survival mode, because you're going to do things that you would never ever do,
To
because that's
survive.
the only option that you believe you have. So if you're in survival mode and you're trying to teach a dog to work through survival mode, yet you just bring it into another, which is not rest, repair. I like call it acceptance. Acceptance means you can hear me. You can understand what I'm saying. Acceptance goes into you or me. If we're calm and we're not emotional and we're not, you know, getting triggered into survival mode from our subconscious pattern, then we can accept a lot of what we could if we were always triggered by our survival mode. If that
Yeah.
makes sense.
It absolutely does to me. And the thing is like, when we look at the term survival mode, what's another name for it? It's dog eat dog,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
And that's literally what we're dealing with right here, is these dogs that are just, they are dog aggressive, and that's primal,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And I believe that probably a lot of people have to be able to see the dog for who it is. People can't, because all they can see is the dog at the worst of who they are at that moment. But
Yeah.
you have to be able to believe, first of all, believe that it's even possible to allow a dog to reach its most highest and best self, but that it can actually stay there when the pressure's on, amounts of management, once you really dig into that energy and all the trauma, emotional trauma, because dogs do have emotional trauma. They don't hold it like we do. Like, it's triggered by their our conscious pattern makes excuses for people. Theirs doesn't. If theirs isn't going to make an excuse for somebody to do that, they're just going to remember that, and it's going to create a subconscious pattern to keep them alive.
You're breaking up so much, but I'm trying to gather everything
I'm
you're saying.
sorry.
No, you're all good. But the excuses is huge, and we make excuses, not just for people, but also for, I think, for dog trainers. And that's what I was like, when this doesn't work, then we're screwed. We're trying to, put a square uh, block through a round hole, and we need to go back to the drawing board. And that's what happened with me when I was working with these dogs, Alicia, and working with, like, especially with purely positive theories and whatnot, and then taking them out into the real world where this rich external stimuli, all the training went out the window, and I was like, wait, this isn't supposed to be. What's going on here? And then that made me, take more of a naturalist approach and look at what is
Yes.
in the world around us, and we bring the dog out in the world around us, and there's a whole concept of not to be only positive and I get it, it feels good.
Yeah, it does. But I don't look at even correcting a dog as correction anymore. That's just not a belief that I have in my brain. I don't view it as that way. I view it as I'm advising you that your decision is not a decision that will benefit anybody in this pack. So therefore you cannot make that decision. If you would like to be in harmony and live in this pack, that's just not a decision that is going to be a viable option for us. You're going to create problems. It's going to, maybe hurt somebody or maybe hurt yourself. So that is not
I love
an
that.
option for you. So you need to figure out another option. Not that and I don't look at it that way. So I feel like it doesn't stop a dog from trying something else. It doesn't even stop a horse from trying something else because they don't feel as like I'm just going straight up no. I'm just going, hey, wrong choice. Figure to problem solve your way out of that. So in essence, I do a lot of free shaping because you have to figure out, go bumpers, nope, wrong choice, nope, wrong choice, nope, wrong choice. And the second you get it right, yes, I'm going to release the pressure because you just figured it out.
Beautiful. Do you treat or anything? What
Yeah,
about?
I
Okay.
don't have a problem with food. It all comes down to state of mind. So if
Mm.
that specific dog can handle that, look at it as it's going to push the dog into a more forward state of mind. And then how much pressure am I going to have to put on that state of mind to get the dog back to the balance? So
Yeah.
if it allows too much pressure forward, then I'm not going to add that stimuli because it's forward and battle the dog back down again. So
Yeah.
it just depends on the dog. If the dog can handle that form of forward pressure, then yeah. If it can't, then I may work them up to that, but it just really depends on the situation and the dog. I don't have a set protocol, as you would say. I mean, my first thing is working on getting the dog to understand how to relax. That's first and foremost, because without that, I have no foundation to work on. Without the to its most calm self and hear me, there will be tension. They won't retain it, and then I'll have to repeat it 1,000 times, and I don't
Mm.
want to work like that.
That's right. And so you get the dog to relax and then open,
Mm-hmm.
and then open, and then here real quick, Erica says, absolutely love Alicia's workshops and the implementing of energy work that she teaches with not only the dogs but the horses as well. Tosh says she's guilty of girl crushing. You got a girl crush down in New Zealand there, Alicia.
I love you, Tosh.
I love Tosh too. I love you, Tosh. Notice that she didn't say boy crushing. I kind of feeling left out here. Uh, Bridge and reward. That's what Robin Meyer says. That's absolutely it.
Yes, ma'am.
Um, Hi, Bill. It's Sharon from Australia. Hey, Sharon. Hi, Alicia. She says there too. So, yeah, the open, receptive, and you're not even talking about rapport, or what about rapport? Building rapport with the dog is that as important as the relaxation, or do you want them to get relaxed? Is that come first?
So first work, and that's going to be my long line. I want to add pressure because pressure is always going to drive the brain to the
Okay.
relaxation.
Well, it gives that tension.
Right. So basically, I'm going to use the long line. I'm going to allow the dog to get distracted, and then I'm going to move away and add the pressure and release with the long line or with a slip collar. And it puts the dog into pack drive because you're constantly something else. You go, nope, I'm more relevant. I want you to stay focused on me. So I'm going to change direction and completely move away from you. Not only that, but I'm not going to say a word to you about it. I'm just going to add pressure. And you'll find that the dog's brain starts to cycle down long line that was 15 foot away from you 5 minutes ago is walking right next to you in a hill. You haven't said a word to it, and it stops and sits every time you stop, and it can happen that fast.
Yep, it's the first thing I do with every dog I get, the
Yep.
foundation work with the long line. And
Yep.
that's how you connect with those dogs, you know?
Mm-hmm. It's a lot of that. Again, back to putting the dog into a place where it can telepathically hear you. If it's in survival mode, all it's holding energy in order to react to the stimulant. It's going to go, I don't want to use any of my energy to stay focused on the tasks at hand because I'm too busy worrying about that bird over there just flew. I may go into prey drive, come behind me and get me. They're too worried about that. So you have to take the brain back down to the place where it retains information, and that's in acceptance.
Yeah. Well, and if you think about it, you know, they're like, and just like what you say, when you're doing the long line work, and especially right at the beginning, man, and my favorite saying, I think George Cockrell, I heard it from him, is silence is golden, duct tape is silver, you
Yep.
know?
Yep.
And
I always say because if I'm quiet, they don't have any other choice but to listen to what I'm saying here. That's
mm,
the way they hear me. So it only influences them to pay more attention to my visualization and my intentions through that. And if
see,
you teach a dog to pay attention to that, you will be surprised at how much they start paying attention to it all the time.
wherever you are, stay right there because you're like crystal clear right now. So,
Awesome.
yeah. Well, and that's what I say, you know, when I was talking with Casey Cover and she was doing the name and explain stuff, and I was like, dude, that the voice is for us.
Yeah.
The
Oh yeah.
intent, the intent is for that dog. You know what I'm saying? Just like what you're saying here, right?
Yes. Exactly. Never needs to be words. Actually, it was so bad. I have been so patterned myself so much to not speak that when I started to do more obedience and more work like that, I was literally half the time never verbalizing it out my mouth. I was saying it, but it was not coming through verbalization in our fashion. So I
Right.
had to actually start to teach myself to communicate verbally with dogs again because it wasn't there before. Even to say good, I it's not that I didn't say it, it's not that I didn't feel it. I felt that energy. I felt that when a dog, you know, looks at me and says I love you, to me, I don't need to verbalize it. I just need to feel it the same way they do, and they'll know that I feel the same way.
Yeah. Well, and I think that anybody that, you know, that wonders how pros deal with dogs, go to one of these IACP conferences and see that, you know, whenever we see a dog, I mean, I don't even touch the dog, but I say hi to it,
Yeah.
you know, and I acknowledge and I admire that dog. And we don't need a touch. You don't need to. I mean, some dogs I will absolutely, but you know, it's interesting if we went to you know, just a regular store and people, oh my gosh, and they get right down and this excited energy and it's a very interesting condition, the human condition is, you know, especially when it comes to behavior and being stewards of these animals, right?
Yeah. It's self-rewarding to do those things. So, and that's what we want to do. We don't so much care about anybody but ourselves these days, which is part of the problem.
Yeah. Well, and but it's also why we do what we do as advocates for these animals, you know,
Yeah.
and showing people. And then that's what I tell people once they've had a major breakthrough with their dog, and you know, it's literally changed their life. I'm like, imagine what else is in your life that you thought you knew all about,
Yeah.
you know, that maybe could use a little bit more exploring here, you know.
Yeah. I do believe that animals are the way to become in touch with themselves a lot more. And eventually, I mean, my goal was to have a school, and not just a school for the dogs, but for people, because you don't need to be a dog trainer to come here and learn how to connect with an animal in that fashion, because it will only benefit you. It will only
Yeah.
benefit your own personal health to to connect, because it allows you to feel things that you don't want to feel with people,
Hmm.
to feel it with people.
Well, it allows you to be vulnerable
Yeah.
and live in the moment. It teaches you to live in the moment and and also it teaches you to respond
Mhm.
instead of react, right?
Yep, exactly. It allows, because again, with this kind of work, if you do not put yourself in a place where you're responding and not just reacting, then you don't make any progress with your animal. And you know, the tools are all great and they're fantastic. I use every tool available. They make so much difference, especially the e-collar with communication for new clients. But my overall goal is never to be stuck on that tool. Not for
Mm.
my clients, not for myself, because that's just a communication until you get on the same wavelength. And then when you're both on the same wavelength, you shouldn't need a tool. The tools become irrelevant. You are the tool.
Cannot hear Alicia. Can you hear her at all, or is she? Sorry, I just had somebody pop up said they couldn't hear you. Yeah, and that's it. Is that these are tools, and if you always need that tool to be there, then that tool is no longer a tool. It becomes part of the program,
Right.
and tools malfunction, folks. There's collars break, remotes get lost, batteries die, uh, points. They say, yeah, they can hear you. So. And that's it. We need to take it that step further. And as I was saying to Alicia about, we need to connect with that dog,
Mm-hmm.
and what does it mean for you? I mean, it's esoteric for me, and it is an esoteric thing. But I mean, what does it mean for you to connect with a dog?
I mean, it takes me back to probably my most true self because I am a dog because we're all one. I
Mm.
so I mean it's natural. It feels like that's what I've always done. Even horses, it doesn't matter. It's animals in general. The connection for me is it feels like home, I guess. So it's not something that I could go without.
Well, I think some people it's easier to feel than others, and
You get better at it though. It's like anything that when you start it, maybe you weren't so good at it, but it's not that it's not there. It's just you're not familiar with those tools for yourself are not developed. So you have to develop those tools. And once you develop them, then the feel that is you're more open to it. So it's like the wavelength. When you have the key to that frequency, once you find it, then it's very easy for you to pull it out of the records and out of the library. Then it becomes just easier and easier for you to find it each and every time you successfully do it. And the
yeah,
dogs will always validate you.
yeah.
You don't need anybody else to validate you.
Well, I think too that you start out your first lessons, even with the horses and whatnot, of raising and lowering, raising your energy up and down,
Mm-hmm.
and so it starts from the very, very beginning.
Yeah.
And you see who's good at it.
Yeah.
You see right away, like, okay, this is a little awkward, you
Yes.
know.
But what's my favorite part is watching the people that maybe are uncomfortable with it or not in tune with it, watching them blossom into a person that is.
Mm,
Because and it just has to be the drive to go through the uncomfortable parts has to be there, but once you get through to the other side, anybody can do it. It's just dealing with our own, junk, our own crap that, you know, and for me, the horses, they make you a better person because you don't have any. It's not even if you didn't want to. I mean, you kind of have to if you want to do it in this fashion. There is no there is no room for you not dealing with your own crap. It just
yeah.
isn't.
Well, and to going through it, through,
Yeah.
not up, not over, not under, not around.
Right.
You have to go through it, and just like the sword that gets forged through the fire,
Yeah.
on the other side, when it gets quenched, it's so much stronger.
Yeah.
And and that's it. Is that there's valuable lessons to be learned here. There's strengths to be uncovered within these challenges, and especially when you're dealing with another another sentient being as a human. It causes us to reflect on our actions, to look in the moment, to be constantly, just know how we're feeling, and just staying in that moment.
Yeah.
So let's see here. We have some other comments here. Tool can become a crutch, absolutely. Tool becomes a crutch when reliance on them overtakes connection.
That's right.
A good one, Tosh. Tool
Right.
becomes crutch when the reliance on them overtakes the connection. Sam, better. She's late, but she's here. Welcome, Sam.
That's my
She said,
at
"That's
work.
who?"
And Chrissy, my two employees,
Oh, Chrissy and Sam.
Chrissy and
Welcome.
Sam.
Work kept Sam late. The slave driver over here.
Uh,
So yeah,
so
that's
she was at her other work. She's a vet tech too.
well, and that's I mean, and I would be curious, like what. So you have employees now, and
Yeah.
so what do you look for employees, and how do you look for people that Chrissy's internet sucks right now, by the way. Um, Are you looking for people that have like little glimmers of this stuff that are already present? And
Yeah,
just
Chrissy was a horse trainer, and she has her horses here at my place. So,
okay.
and then they're both vet techs, so they were already in the industry, and they love animals. And Sam's also she come to one of my workshops, and so I definitely am looking for people that are already interested into this life. You know, there, the desire for it anyway. I can
Yeah.
build the desire, but the desire has to be there. So that's probably my number one thing. And then, the way the animals react. That's also going to be something that I look for because the dogs will tell you.
You better
The
believe
animals
it.
will tell you. Yeah.
Well, we're working on just so everybody knows, we're working on bringing Alicia here this summer,
Yeah.
and so we're gonna
Oh,
have her
that's
here at my property. And so look further into that for one of her workshops. And yeah, same thing, man. I'm looking for help too. I'm looking for an apprentice full time. Um, and that's it. Is that I'm looking for somebody who's just got it. There's a gal down in Lincoln City, Oregon. That's way far away. I'm like, come on, move up, dude.
Yeah.
Once somebody has it, you're like, okay, do you want to do this? Like, what do you?
There, and and it has to be a connection with like when the way we work so close together that if your personalities aren't matching, if there's any tension there, then it's gonna take the whole place down. Because I mean, you can't have tension, you can't have those kind of things. Not around the dogs that we work with, because we
Yeah, and
work
what
with
kind
some
of?
pretty nasty dogs.
Yeah, and so why do you work with those dogs?
Because I love watching them go from their worst to their best.
Mm,
It's an addictive thing at this point. I love making them better.
yeah, changing that character for a more favorable one, right?
Yeah, and what's really cool is Apache, for example. Apache is not one. Apache's probably my first really serious human aggressive dog. He lived in a horse stall for about 2 weeks because I couldn't touch him.
Okay.
Um, he's a lot like Caesar, the Pressa that I have right now, except for Caesar never really. He's went after me a couple times, but it's more of I'm basically telling him he can't do what he wants, and it's more of a redirection than really outright going after me. I don't really consider that going after me for that
Okay.
purpose,
Just
but
a
yeah,
frustration of not reaching that which
right,
is he's trying to achieve.
right, exactly. So, but with Apache, just the fact that he had never been considered a dog that was somebody who could achieve these kind of levels. He was just the mean dog. He was just whatever. That was just what everybody believed. But the fact that once I didn't see that in him, the shift that he felt like he owed me that. Like, he is a dog that he took on the role of the pack leader at my on himself, because that's what he felt that I he was going to give me back for giving me giving him what I gave him.
Hmm.
So that kind of to build that in another being, whether it's a person or a dog, is what makes my heart sing.
Well, you're creating a leader.
Yes.
You know, you're not in creating. You're not enabling a bully, but you're
Mm-mm.
empowering a leader.
Yeah, and it's really cool to watch him go through the paces. This is now I don't show this a lot because most people wouldn't understand it, but I have dogs that hear that it's not just my dog teaching another dog. My dogs will work with me, meaning my dog will get behind me and stand behind me and work another aggressive dog to the
Yeah,
point where if I wanted it to, it would pin it down. So when you have that kind of working relationship with another animal that's not human, that doesn't have that kind of verbalization that you have to communicate like that, that's just something that it's not really describable in words.
magic. It's magic. That's my right. I call him my right hand man, dude.
Yep.
That my cedar. You know, my
Yep.
my cedar cattle dog, a lab cross that I've had as literally my right hand man for the last 14 years. He's 14 now,
Yeah.
and he's retired for the last 3 years. But boy, I bring a reactive dog here, and he's right there, right here at my six. You know,
Yep.
just doing his thing, and just makes me proud, man. And it makes me so grateful that, you know, and just so honored
Yeah.
that this guy would stand up even now as an old man
Yeah.
and stand to protect me. Um, and we got some questions here. Where's your property? My property is just north of Seattle, about 45 miles north of Seattle. I got a few acres out here. We want to move people here, Josh. Yeah, I know the feeling. And Chrissy says, I have the best job ever. So,
Yeah.
yeah, there you go. You still have to clean the kennels tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, I we've been getting aggressive dogs, but I told her the other day that we're gonna get a hybrid for our next challenge that nobody can touch. So we'll see how this one works out.
You're gonna get a what for what?
A wolf hybrid.
Oh goodness. Have you worked with Nelson at all?
No, I haven't.
Oh
Well, and
yeah.
he's been here for a seminar. It wasn't for the behavior seminar that he had,
Oh yeah.
so I
Check
haven't
in.
worked with him in other fashions. So.
He's a really good resource, especially with that wolf
Wolves.
mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's lived with them, and he's definitely. I recommend everybody, whoever's a dog pro, to go to one of his 3-day events, and just the behavior, um, the predator behavior
Mm-hmm.
is huge, and the approachment, staring. And then we're going to actually do a live stream where we go through a lot of the stuff on that he presents, just because it's so valuable to have. Um,
That
it's a
sounds fantastic. I
it's
have
like
a
a cornerstone.
fox, so
You do have a fox. How long have you had the fox for?
I've had him for about 6 months, 7 months now. So
How old?
he's months old.
He's what?
He's about 8 months, 9 months old.
Okay, is he starting to get challenging?
No, he's not. Uh, I started it out. It takes like 10 generations for foxes to become tame. I'm
Yeah.
not sure what generation he is. But he's still very much in survival mode. So the first couple times, and he wasn't really handled for the first 2 months of his life. It was
Uh-oh.
he wasn't here. He was rescued and then brought here.
Okay.
Pretty terrified of everything, and he couldn't even handle being out in the open. So I had to bring him inside and like leave him in a room because he would just hide. He wouldn't even come out if
Mm.
anybody was around. So his survival mode was like super active. So what I had to do with him was just basically I had to teach him to walk on a leash, and obviously he was running away and would hit the end of the leash and the pressure would stop him. So I just sat down with him, and for a whole entire week I wouldn't leave. I didn't do anything towards him, and I didn't put any real strong pressure on him. I just held the leash and I stayed with him until he would fall asleep. And then every time he'd fall asleep, I'd take the leash off. And
Mm.
so now he's not doing bad, and he's able to be out in the barn with all the dogs. and play in his kennel, in his cage, and he watches all the dogs and watches my sessions and stuff. It's pretty cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, behavior is wild, man. I mean, it's just so cool to just observe. And I mean, for every animal or even people, I'm watching all these TLC, 600 Pound Life and
Yeah.
Addicted and My Strange Addiction, like all that weird behavior stuff.
Yeah.
And I just find it fascinating.
I find it fascinating. That's one of the things that I would like to add to the school would be not just for dogs and dog trainers, but like I said, people in general, and understanding what triggers our subconscious mind. What emotion? It's all emotions. Everything comes down to emotions and our experiences with those emotions. And then when we
Yeah.
come in with genetically, of course. Um, I don't know if you watch any of the his name's Sadi Guru,
No.
mystic. But he was talking about how our body we have our mind and then we have our body, and the fact
Hmm.
that our body remembers far more and greater things than our mind does because it's genetics. Like every ancestor, every generation has given you their memory
Wow.
through body. Cool thought to think about how genetics affects us, because that's really all the past memories from all of your other generations, that's the way they've stayed alive. That's what genetics is. So
Well, and I think I think also that it's important to know that we have these things that are passed on. I mean, we have
yeah,
genetics, and then we have the memetics, right?
yeah, yeah.
Or the memes, the
Mm-hmm.
ideas that are carried on, and they have led to survival, you know. And so these ideas have led to people allowing them to conquer this space-time continuum and continue to move their signature forward,
Yeah.
and within that signature is encoded some I don't know, some gremlins, I think.
It's pretty amazing to think about all of those kind of things in general, I think.
Well, I think that we're not taught about this stuff. I think that if we were to really utilize the full power that we have potentially as a human being, that we literally wouldn't communicate like we do. We would be communicating like you do with the dogs, right?
Exactly. Spatial pressure, visualization, body language, energy.
Well, it's also that telepathic,
Yeah, yeah.
you know.
Think is like we have that the visualization is us manifesting it, and then the telepathic is the way we communicate it between the two the two beings, whatever the beings may be. Then our
Well,
body language and our energy and our spatial pressure are basically so let's say I'm correcting a dog. I'm telling the dog to get back on its place. However, I'm not going to verbalize that. I'm going to show that through my visualization and my intentions. And then I'm going to use my body, my energy, and my say the thing you're hearing inside your head, that picture you're getting from me is exactly what I'm saying, because all of my other components are saying that too. Not just that picture, but everything in my body, everything you're seeing, everything you're feeling, everything you're hearing, it all says the same thing. So you're right. So it validates.
yeah. Well, then when the behavior is achieved, and then the everything is saying the same thing again,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And so
Yep.
it's a concert, with this, and then once that's done, then everything switches over to this. And they're like, yeah, there you go, yes,
Yep.
and then let's worry about something else.
Yep. And it's crazy how fast dogs get that kind of stuff, even though they've not done, maybe they've never stayed. You know, I get people that come in all the time and be like, I can't get my dog to stay, but they never taken the dog to acceptance. So it can't stop. It doesn't stop moving forward. I always look at it as the dog's brain can't stop cycling. It just keeps moving forward.
Mm.
So it's like even with CCR, whenever I do technique that I do, I look at it as a dog is in fight or flight. If I correct the dog physically, I'm blocking the decision to move forward in that pattern. However, I still have to dog acceptance. But if it's really far into fight, it can't come back into its body. It's like it goes out of its body and it hangs out, over top of it, and it just watches the whole experience from overhead. It's not actually physically inside its body.
Yeah.
So when you put them in the CCR, it allows them to like come back into their body and see what just happened and experience that, and then get over that.
What is CCR for the listeners here?
Conditioned calming response is something that I started. It started out as a correction, but it's a technique that I use to create new associations for dogs, especially for severe prey or feral dogs, severe flight. It works fantastic for those kind of dogs. Those that just can't stop, like they're on the hamster wheel and they can't get off of it.
Yep. Well, I mean, their awareness. I mean, I tell people we're not even out this door, and your dog is down the block.
Yep.
And then not only that, but just like your CCR, it brings that awareness right here, boom. And so does that long line work, dude.
Yeah.
That long line is like, look, I'm not over here. You're not, boom, you're out over there.
Yeah.
I'm going this way. There's a consequence, boom. And then the dog needs to readjust and be like, what was I thinking? Oh my God, there's a squirrel over there, and then boom.
Yeah.
Like, what was I thinking? And then it's like an IQ puzzle, like a puzzle. You're just handing it and then waiting for that aha moment, waiting for that dog to get it. And once he gets it, that's when you're there to be, and that's where that real reinforcement comes in.
Yeah. Especially with using, because it's, and I use it a lot for aggression. It's different than probably most people would see, because most people would maybe use an e-collar, or it's not. It's literally me and the dog is coming after me, and I say no with my hand. That's how it works until the dog stops coming after me, because I don't initiate it. It's typically the dog is already like that. I get a lot of dogs that are just like, retired or flunked out police dogs that are already just super reactive. They basically look at you and they go after you. There is no way to build any kind of relationship, because they're so far into survival mode that there's nobody home anymore.
Yeah. Well, it's just that response.
Yeah.
I tell people the mind has a mind of its own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally it does. Once, like Caesar's a really good. A police canine that I done recently was a really good example. Neither one of those dogs wanted to do that. They don't like that lifestyle, and then
it's stress.
Hate it. They hated it, and so people are trying to make them do things they don't want to do, and they're in the worst way a dog could possibly do that, because that's not who they are, because they don't want to be that. So why would they be good at that? And then they're like, oh, I can be good at something. I can be really good at being mean and making you scared of me. And that's how they end it.
Well, because it gives them what they want.
Yeah.
An ending to it, right?
Yeah.
And so that's, it makes sense as far as, the dog's mind, how it works. It's just that, every dog's that individual. Just because a dog looks like this doesn't mean that on the inside they're going to fulfill that role.
Yeah. And I could always tell from the look in their eyes that they just, like, that was the first thing I noticed whenever I eval'd the police canine. He was very much he didn't want to be doing that. Like, he just didn't, in his eyes, even though he was coming after me, I want to be doing this to you. It's like a lost look of, I don't know what else to do. This is the only response I know how to make.
Yeah. I don't even know why I'm doing this.
Yep. People are just not, I just know that when people are around, this is what I need to do to keep them away.
And so you show them a different form of what's possible.
Yep. Yeah. But I think what most people have the hardest time with is the whole physical touch. But what most people have a really hard time grasping Yes, it's physical touch, but everything matters about the energy behind the physical touch.
Yes.
I have to be in the most compassionate, empathetic, unconditional, loving place whenever I do that. That because that is the only way to break. So if you can't understand energy matters that much, that even if I physically touched something, now that I could massage them just the same, I could touch a dog, pet a dog with that, all those negative energies, the fear and the anxiety and the depression, and I could unhealthily affect my dog more than if I physically gave them a correction with my hand.
Wow. Wow. I think that people need to hear that, you know. It
Yeah.
says, yes, I struggle with my energy and mental state of mind so much.
Yes.
Well, and that's, I mean, we belong. I mean, just like the dogs have front of mind awareness, or they're down the block, they're not really here. I mean, look at what this social media is doing to people.
Mhm.
And there's this thing called infinite scroll. And when we hit the end of something, then that gives our mind a second to stop and process it.
Right.
But if it's never ending and always feeling, you know, pretty soon our front of awareness is going to be down that scroll, right?
Yeah.
And it's doing something to us. It's changing the way that we react, or the way that we engage with each other, the way that we consume media.
Mhm.
Um, and it's changing our brain as well. And I see kind of conditioned responses, the same that we do with these dogs, in people and in myself as well.
Yeah, it's hard not to well, I mean, like, the first thing I tell most of my clients or most of my students is you got to meditate. You just
Mm,
got to meditate. It has to happen because if you cannot sit with yourself and be quiet and not think, how are you going to hear what the dog's saying? There is no way for you. You're not going to feel it, you're not going to hear it, but if you slow down and you take yourself into that place where your brain's not going a million miles a minute, you can hear those things, you can feel those things, and it's not just scrubbed off as, oh, that's nothing, because it's way easier just to blow it off.
yeah. Well, and that's that conscious mind too, you know, and just convincing us that this is not real. It's not going to be beneficial. It's a waste of time. You got so much crap to do. Come on, let's get on to it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's exactly what you need to quiet down, is that mind.
Yeah.
And you know, no, just like what we were saying, the mind has a mind of its own, and then it likes to control things. It likes to organize, and I mean, depending on your mind, some minds like to be artistic and communicate, and you know, but also whenever we're in fear, fear is the mind killer
Yes.
in
Yes.
humans and in animals too,
Yeah.
right?
Both.
Because and that's what she's talking about here, is a survival mode, and the fight or flight and then avoidance. And then I just like that falling into acceptance,
Yeah.
because it's like they're avoiding, and then all of a sudden, ah,
It feels so good. You can see it in their face
yeah,
whenever
that's
they're
it.
like, "Oh,
I'm like,
finally."
we're
I'm like,
almost there. We're
What is
almost
this new
there.
thing? What is this new thing that I'm feeling? Well, that feels way better. And what is even better is to watch them go, I'm falling back into the other place and I don't like that. So let me go back over here. Because they will start choosing it for themselves. They don't
Yeah.
want to be like that. Just sometimes they don't know how to get out of it.
Yeah, and sometimes and it's a response. I mean, it's a polypeptide chemical response in their
Yeah.
brain. Their pharmaceutical company in their brain is pumping out doubts, fears, anxieties, and just because they feel good once doesn't mean that those doubts, fears, anxieties don't stop, you know,
Right. Right.
automatically. And
And
even
I
if they
always,
feel good for a while,
yeah.
you're still going to get a little pump, doubts, fear, anxiety. Okay,
Yep.
you know.
Yep. And I always tell my clients that too, is like in the beginning, you have to understand the dog is, or us even, the hormones, those are still going to release. The difference is they're just going to start to learn how to do it. The
Yeah.
first time I got attacked by a dog, I was overwhelmed with the adrenaline, the
Mm.
shaking, the sweating, the all those things that happened whenever
Crying,
you're
like
attacked. But
me was.
over time, you learn to adjust to that. And a 10-minute window before turns into a 2-second window now because I've learned to process and go through that hormone.
Absolutely.
So that's impulse control, basically.
Well, and that's visualization too.
Yeah,
I mean,
yes.
and living through it, and also, it's sometimes you have to imagine the worst and live it out, and then to know that it's not that bad. That's just me though. Just
No,
like
no.
these mind exercises I like to do.
Yeah, I believe in, I think a lot of times it's not that we want to go put pressure, tremendous amounts of pressure on a dog to get them through to the end. Obviously, you step up your pressure each time, but in my mind, if you cannot dog under the pressures that it triggers to, how are you ever going to know that it's never going to trigger to that? Like,
Mm,
I mean, I can condition a dog all I want, but it doesn't seep down into the subconscious mind like working through pressure does.
that's
Working
right.
through pressure teaches you how we are really, if we think that we can control everything and control situations and we're never going to allow our dogs to be in these situations that it would never happen, then that's just the of having something bad happen, and that's kind of why we have so many attacks and bites and things like that.
Well, it's like that we don't go all the way.
Yeah,
You
no,
know,
we
it's
stop.
we stop. We're like, okay, we're good, and it's like, no, 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 we're not even down the block yet. We need to work on this, and sometimes we need to, do some different scenarios that
Right,
might be a real world situation that we can work through, and it's just like flight simulators, or something like that.
totally.
This is just a simulation,
Yep.
and oh, dude, you failed, or you passed. Good job, buddy. Um,
But
I want to go
go
ahead.
ahead. Go ahead.
I was just saying, I wanted to read the definition of pressure: the continuous physical force exerted on or against an object by something in contact with. The use of persuasion, influence, or intimidation to make someone do something, or a verb is attempt to persuade or coerce into doing something. So I would say the more the persuading than the
I don't
coercion.
even. I always think about pressure is viewed as such a negative thing, and
Mm,
it's kind of sad to see that pressure is viewed so negatively because pressure could be such a good thing. It just comes from this. If you're going to put pressure on something, then your pressure has to vibrate from the form of pressure. If it doesn't, then the pressure is going to create a negative.
yeah,
Two negatives do not equal a positive, they just create more negative. So you make the situation worse.
that's
And
right.
that people say, well, if you add pressure to a dog, which obviously because that's the dog has been patterned to do that whenever pressure's felt. But to get them through it and on the other side of it, you have to have, if you're going to put pressure on the dog, you're going to have it from the emotional standpoint of a positive.
Well, you're carrying and you're guiding, and
Yeah.
and just like what you said earlier about how pressure actually drives the brain,
Mm-hmm.
we're driving the brain, we're letting it drive, we're just kind of steering it,
Mm-hmm.
to where we'd like, and then once it gets there, we're going to reward it and just be like, there we go, buddy. See, that's not too bad. Isn't this so much better? And they're like, I
Exactly.
love it, and you're like, I knew you would,
Yeah.
knucklehead.
We live off pressure too. It's not like we don't live
Yeah,
around. So we're surrounded by pressure. People, us.
yeah.
That's the only
Road
reason.
rage, dude.
Exactly. That's the only reason some people conform is because there are pressures to, the whole, hey, go drink this. And I'm going to pressure you until you don't, you finally do it. So I think that's where the negative stigma comes from. But,
Mhm.
you know,
Peer pressure.
yeah, yeah.
Peer pressure. You know.
Yeah. But you can put pressure, and I think also a misconception of you have to hold pressure sometimes. So
Mm,
you apply the pressure, and when the dog's state of mind is still teetering on the edge of fight or flight, you got to hold it. You can't move into it. If
mm.
you hold it and you don't back off, then you're the way you're feeling, but it's still not okay. Going to ask you to to make a different decision. However, I'm going to give you longer to make that decision, to cycle your brain down into acceptance, and then I'm going to follow through with some more pressure.
I love it.
So you got to know when to hold the pressure too. It's not just straight up adding pressure.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and you got to challenge those dogs, and
Right.
sometimes it's like tough love, dude. I know you're capable of this, man. This is going to be a big day for you, but once we get through this, I'm going to be so proud because you're going to face, and that's it. Our strengths lie within our challenges.
Yeah, totally.
So do those dogs, and they're going
It
to.
gives them confidence. It gives them
That's
so much confidence because they're like, oh, wow, okay, I know how to deal with that now. It's like us. We are the same way. We feel confident. That's what gives us confidence. We know how to handle that situation. This is why military, goes and does these exercises where they're constantly
like ropes
doing
courses.
simulation.
Oh yeah, our simulation, yeah. One thing I've noticed is huge influx of people wanting the end goal of behavior without understanding the dog first.
Yeah.
They're always jumping to when can I do X? How quickly can we get X behavior? Not who is my dog and why are they doing that?
That's so true. And a lot of people are, I think it has a lot to do with, I just want my life easier kind of
Well,
thing.
all these boxes, these that are in our pockets every day, that give us a push of a button access to all the information that we need instantly. And I have to remind people that behavior doesn't work like that. This is repetition's the mother of learning. We have to do things over and over and over, and slow is fast, less is more, and celebrate our victories and move forward. But a lot of times they look at these dogs as kind of like like a like a device or something, not a sentient being whose wants and desires are just as important to that animal as your wants and desires are to you.
Yeah. And I always say, like, you can get rid of the big behaviors pretty fast. And I don't mean rid of. You can stop the side effects and give the dog to keep that structure going for each amount of time to set that into the subconscious. And then once it's in the subconscious, the dog begins to self-regulate.
Yes.
But if you do not teach the dog to have compassion, empathy, care for others, which is only found in acceptance, then you will not get any self-regulation. So.
Well, it's that acceptance, getting them there.
Totally. And we're the same way. The people are the same way.
Yeah, I mean, if you were, I mean, and the other thing is that relaxation too, and then opening up into that acceptance, and then the different pressures, tactile versus psychological pressures, and then understanding the importance of those, and then knowing, and then we have the mimetic, then we have the mimetic considerations to take into effect, and then you also have, just so many pieces to this puzzle here.
Yeah.
But I think that once you start to understand, this will take your relationship with your dog to the fullest potential by far. I have better relationships with my dogs that I haven't ever even worked with obedience wise, and just done long line work and walked out and just connected with them, than I have with dogs that I've done obedience with. And even some of the dogs, like I have a dog coming to me tomorrow who I've only done private trainings with, and I'm so excited for him to come stay with me so he can see that I'm not just a Mr. Rules guy, that he's going to come and party with me a little bit. I'm going to get to know him and build rapport with him. And then when I come back over there, it's going to be that much better when we do work with him and his family again.
Yeah. And like another thing that I think about is like dogs watching other dogs, they learn.
Yes.
They take all that information in and they retain that information, especially whenever they're in the right state of mind. And that's why I love doing a lot of place work and working one dog and doing it as a pack too. So it's not just I'm working one dog, you guys do whatever you want. No, everybody's as a unit is working together. We're all being calm together while we watch.
Yep.
This with our positive, calm energy. We're supporting that facilitation for that energy from that dog as well.
I wonder, you know what? I could probably show that. Do you want to show it? What you sent me?
The video?
Yeah. Yeah, I can. Let me find it here, and then we'll see what I can do. Um, see if I can figure the tech out. But yeah, this will give you an idea of what you do at the. Oh wait, that's my dog.
It's been so long since I've been able to do like that kind of work
Okay,
yet
let's
because
see
we have
here.
to
Yeah, I can. Here,
have
let
to
me.
move them. But it's just different because like I want to work my pack, and then this is just my personal preference. You know, the way I like to work, the way I like to work with my taking a dog with me, meaning, you know, hey, they're gonna block this dog for me if I don't have the ability to block this dog, but they're gonna know when that from me, like, hey, you take care of that. I want that kind of relationship with my pack, but I want it in a huge pack type
Can you
of thing.
see? Can you see your place here?
See it? Yep.
So this is what everybody's seeing here. So I'll explain what's going on here.
So my pack's in the middle in the horseshoe shape, and then we have between rescues and board and trains all back tied on one side on closest to right now. Those dogs are still back tied, meaning, you know, they don't have the greatest ability to stay on place yet. But then starting right there, all the way around, everybody's completely off leash and just staying on their place.
Okay.
So everybody's practicing some impulse control, and then you'll see Chrissy working a dog in the middle while everybody else is doing place work. And then before that, we were calling
Slacker,
yeah,
Mr.
yeah. That's
Crawler.
why I don't like those pads. The place boards are much nicer.
Yeah, little.
Just,
Is that Chrissy there?
that's Chrissy and working a little. That little dog come in for attacking.
Okay, a little turkey.
So he's doing really good, and he's doing good. He's been home for 3 weeks, and he's still doing fantastic.
Fantastic. And that's it. You know, it's just being part of this whole, you know, this whole unit, all working together, and just by staying in that on the place there. And I like the cots much better too than, you know, than the just a mat or a vinyl pad or something like that. The little difference in elevation really defines those boundaries and locks those dogs into what they should be doing there. So.
And I think the big thing when you have a pack and the reason place is so important is because dogs are they're opportunistic.
Yeah.
If you have a pack, if you work with multiple dogs, you'll find out, I don't care how trained your dogs are, if they want to do something and I give my dog a higher rank, I'm allowing them to correct other dogs, guess what? They're going to test me because I've already allowed that to happen.
Yep.
So that's something that I'm creating, and I'm well aware of myself that I'm creating that in my dog myself. And that's something that I'm completely okay with because that's the way I choose and like to work. But place allows me to be able to work with a large number of dogs, yet I'm asking them to self-regulate, you know, hey, regulate yourself over here. But, you know, I'm lying if I say that works perfect every time. I don't want anybody to think that that's like I go and put all these dogs in place and there's not a dog that doesn't try to get off and be opportunistic. They do. That's why it's nice to have a couple people where somebody can check the other dogs while the other person's working a dog. Otherwise, you get dogs that are like, oh, you're not paying attention and you're too busy to correct me, so I'm
And
just
they're
gonna go ahead
smart.
and do what I want. Oh yeah. And then if they win that,
Then
that's gonna
it's
create the pattern to stay a little longer. So
yeah, it starts back at square one because now
oh, yeah.
they've experienced or they know the loophole.
Yeah, totally.
They're like, I just need to wait for them to get distracted and then I'm out.
Yeah.
And then Shelby says, yes, opportunistic and know how to push those buttons. And she also says, Rasta.
Yeah.
And, you know, I call my dogs the preacher's kids because of that same region, man. They're like, let me show you guys the good stuff, you know.
I always say there are spirit guides because they're going to show you what emotions you need to deal with.
Yes.
The ones that you have to learn. And I
And you
mean,
have to be vulnerable to learn them too,
oh
you
yeah,
know.
and I have my own emotions that I have to deal with. It's not like I'm perfect and going, oh, I go to every day. I don't. I still have to deal with my own emotions and check myself. But the difference is I'm very aware and I'm very honest and I can check myself. I've taught myself to put myself back in the right state of mind. And if not, then I was
Well, say that again. If not, what?
then I'll stop working with the dog. I'll take myself out of the scenario and come back and
Yep.
revisit whenever I'm in the right place.
Well, same thing that we're doing to these dogs is
Yeah.
teaching them how to calm themselves down and teaching them, discernment and how to make the right decisions by the pressure and yeah, and that's it. And what I call the charging, or I call them the charging pad. The
Yeah.
places. I'm like, go to your charging pad, dude. Your battery's low or
That's
something.
perfect.
You know.
Perfect, perfect explanation. The
Yeah.
charging pad, because it totally is. Like I know we were talking about.
Fenris is my pretty much my personal mood ring.
We were just talking about that the other day. She was like, he does stuff on purpose just to push my buttons. I said, yes, he does.
Yes,
He
he
loves it.
does. Yep. He's like,
And
watch what I can get my human to do.
yeah,
Watch, I'll take 3 steps over here, and they're looking at you. Dude, I've watched my dog. I've been brushing my teeth and watched my dog in the mirror sneaking behind me. You know, and I'm just like, oh, you little turkey, dude.
yeah.
But I gotta watch him. I want to watch what he's doing. So I'm sitting.
Yeah, my first original two dogs. One was Bass alone, and the other one's Sledge. But Bass, whenever he was about 9 months old, he had this to me that he turned it into a game. He knew how much that just infuriated me. That he
Yeah.
would look at me and just barely, crouch down just a little bit, lower his head, and the second I took a step, he would just bust off running, and just it was just the funnest thing he ever did. And and then he would lay down and look at me again, like, come and get me. And
I'm done.
I just
I'm done.
started
We're good.
leaving.
Yeah.
Walking off, it quit becoming a game. But it was just, if he made me mad, I didn't even have to walk towards him. If he got the energy and I engaged that
Yeah, you better believe it.
energy, then it
Just
allowed the
little.
pattern to exist.
Yeah. Yeah. When it's a reassuring or uh, reinforced,
Yeah.
by his own adrenaline and
Yeah.
endorphins and just good times, and
Yeah.
oxytocin and all that stuff. So let me do a quick plug. I have a little paid group that I want people to know about. It's at bowwowbill.live, and I do a lot of training there. So I'm going to put that up on the thing here. I'm going to actually make it. How do I do it? Scroll there. Wait, let me hide it down here. And so if you guys are interested, it's $19.95 a month, and it's bowwowbill.live. So check that out. We have some members watching today. And then how do people get a hold of you?
You can get a hold of me through, typically, Facebook is the easiest way to get a hold of me.
Okay.
Or my business page, Faithful Dog Canine Training, or you can get a hold of me on my personal page, which is Alicia Bloomfield.
Do you have any seminars slated right now? I know you just scheduled something in April, right?
Yeah, the end of March, I'm gonna have. Then I'll probably do another one here in June, which is the one. The one here, we always use horses. So,
Okay.
when we did the one in California, which I would love to, another one in California, we had a facility that had horses, and we was able to use horses there as well. So I believe the horses are definitely a huge benefit.
I can borrow my neighbor's horses if you want.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Even the way you put pressure on a dog, you can move different parts of the body by the area in which you focus your energy on. So it makes it really nice with the horses because they're so big. So it makes it easier to direct energy, and then whenever you get to the dogs, it's a little bit more refined and allows you to work a little bit better with them. So.
Well, and it just teaches you that it gives you a different experience through direct experience, through working it and feeling the feelings and and having a big creature that's 1,500 pounds versus, I mean, my dog's 14 pounds.
And it was also nice to watch the way the brain functions. So if I just have a horse standing and turn into the left, and I'm on the right side of the horse's body, and I step into the side of the horse's neck to turn it. Well, the horse just stands there, and it has to actually like clumsily take a step to the
Hmm.
left to get away from me to yield to my pressure. I walked the horse forward first and then turned it. The fluidity completely changes. So learning that your brain sometimes needs to be moving it to make a more fluid transition into another area. It
Makes
sometimes
sense.
yeah, sometimes you need to do that, especially whenever you get into luring for like dogs that are really um, pack dogs. So let's say I pressure this whole time, so I've taught the dog not to yield to my spatial pressure, so it won't move into my spatial pressure, but I'm it to move into my spatial pressure now to teach, luring with obedience.
Yeah.
So sometimes it won't just come from the heel side straight in front of me without moving the brain forward first. It would just sit there. It's already transitioned into that back state of mind. And some
Hmm.
dogs have such a hard time transitioning from the forward to the back that if you add any kind of pressure, if the dog's down, it won't come forward at all.
Yeah.
So
It will even resist,
right,
you
it
know.
will. You have to understand that pressure starts to apply to all forms of training, whether it's my form of training or you're just doing simple obedience. If you learn the way a dog's brain cycles and the way pressure affects it, they start use, like, let's say a dog that can't handle pressure on an e-collar. You use a little bit of food, bring the brain forward because it gets excited about the food, start
Mm.
adding the pressure of the e-collar. Now the dog can handle the pressure of the
And you can see when
forward.
you can see that dog like making deals in its brain too.
Yeah,
You
totally.
know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
Whether there's like, okay, well, I'm just gonna get it, and then you
Yeah, yeah.
and then you're
Yeah.
like, it's still there, and
Like
there's like,
you can see that switch in them, especially when you're luring and you got your dog is like, oh, I'm barely there, and then once it's like even with the horses, like you get a horse that will just stop and stand their ground, and it's like I'm not moving forward. So you just keep adding pressure. You add pressure and hold and release, and pressure and hold and release, and then the second the brain unlocks, it's the exact same in dogs.
hmm, wild. Yeah, I want to work with horses more.
Yeah, horses are awesome. They're they want to be at peace so much. I think that's why so many people use them for like the PT and that. When they're at peace, the energy is just so calm and relaxing
Mm.
that to be around them and just to brush them and to be there near them affects you. And I
Well,
think
to hear
that's really
their little teeth picking up the grass and their nose just like feeling it out, and just being there and being in that moment, able to hear that and to appreciate it, and hearing them chomp,
mm-hmm.
just hearing them chomp, and man, I want to go hang out with horses now.
Yeah. I don't even know how many horses we have here anymore. We have.
That's so funny.
I know. I need to
The
count.
first step is admitting that you have a problem.
They're not
Okay.
all mine. Does that make
Okay.
a difference?
Kinda.
But like when you feed them all and they're all eating and
Hmm.
like gosh, they're satisfied. Just to hear that they're all eating and they're happy and their bellies are getting full, but that's an awesome sound. It's one of my
Chrissy says we have 14.
oh, she
At a
knows.
girl. Yep. Okay. Well, Erica says, thank you for an amazing live event. Love Alicia Bloomfield. Yeah, this was amazing. And next time we'll figure it out. Like, maybe we'll do like a dry run with your computer and see if you can hear it. Because if we have a better connection, I would love to have you on more. And then I want to go next time I have you on. let's start getting into reading recommendations
Yeah, I
and
have
mentors,
lots.
um, and movies too, like the movie, like all the movies that we were talking about you sent me earlier.
Yeah, I have a
Um,
whole list of like I send thing that, and everything on that list I've watched, so it's not like know that or I've read the book. So I have a whole list of all the things I like, which I can send link if you'd like. All documentaries, and they're categorized by what it is that it's about, like qigong, like all the
yeah.
videos about qigong.
Send me a link, and then once I get the link, then I'll put it down in the comments below for the people that are watching this. If they're interested, they can check that out. And then, would you consider coming on again with me, Alicia?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Yeah, it was wonderful having you. And you know, I'm going to say goodbye now, but hold on one second. I'm going to say goodbye to you on the other end there, or on the in the studio. So don't hang up quite yet.
Okay.
And thank you everybody for joining us. Check out the
Love
Bow
you
Wow
all.
Bill. We love you all. Yes, check out the bowwowbill.live. And yeah, thank you, Sue. Sue Bergstresser says really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you both. And we'll see you next time. I'm going to try to get a lot of people here next week for the Thanksgiving holiday here in America, and maybe have a bunch of content for you guys. A lot of good dog conversations. So have a good evening, everybody, wherever you're at.
Good night.
And